Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I will leave names and links to the creators of this tag in the description box down below so you can check them out as well. The best book you've read so far in 2018, hands down, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This book reduced me to nothing but a pile of tears. The genuine emotion that Kristen made me feel, this could easily be a true story because of what these two sisters go through during World War II. They're polar opposites at the beginning. One's outspoken, independent, just wants to fight. The other one has a daughter and a husband who's fighting, and she just wants to stay safe and survive. In the end, they end up heroes in different ways, and it's just a very inspiring look at how there isn't one face of someone who can do something amazing. Both of them are different people. They have their own separate internal struggles. They don't do the same things for the war effort, but they do something, and they both end up strong female heroes, and I highly, highly recommend it. Best sequel you've read so far in 2018, Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. This was something I was super excited for. It's a sequel to Stalking Jack the Ripper, which I absolutely loved. I didn't get to this as soon as I wanted to because of stupid book slumps, but the point is that I did eventually get to it, and it was really good. Unlike the first book, which took place in England and dealt with Jack the Ripper, this book takes place in Romania and deals with Dracula and a community that is very superstitious. Both books have the same gothic vibe, but they have their own settings, their own antagonists, their own mysteries, and each one is such an exciting and new adventure to dive into. I really enjoy the way Kerri creates atmosphere and tells a story, and I am chomping at the bit for more. A new release you haven't read yet but want to, The Hazelwood by Melissa Alberts. I've heard mixed things about this, but I still really want to read it. Going off of the description from the book, it's about a girl whose grandmother dies, and then her mother goes missing. The mystery revolves around the dark fairy tales that her grandmother wrote. There's a message left behind her mother, and all it says is stay away from the Hazelwood, which is where her grandmother lived. And of course, in order to find her mother and save her, she has to go to the Hazelwood because that seems to be where the answers will be found. It sounds really good. I know there's mixed reviews, but I'm really hoping I love it because it's a beautiful book and I would really hate to unhaul it. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Do you even have to ask? Escaping from Houdini by Kerri Maniscalco. September cannot come soon enough. Biggest disappointment. This is so easy. Written on the Wind by Judith Hella. After The Nightingale, I had so much hope that this story would live up to the standard. This is also about sisters during World War II, except there's 3 of them and they're from America, and this is part of a series rather than a standalone. There were a couple bright spots, but other than that, I was dragging through it, forcing myself to finish. I was excited to read from an American perspective, and it just felt extremely shallow. I never once teared up. There was no genuine emotion, even when the main character actually got to Russia and experienced the terror of the war. I never once felt that at all. Unfortunately, I paid for the whole series, and because I spent that money, I will finish this series. Maybe it'll pick up. I don't know. All I know is that the first book was extremely disappointing. If you liked it, that's great. For me, I will never read this again. Biggest surprise. I actually don't have one book for this question. I actually have a genre. I have steered away from romance for a while now. I don't know why, maybe it's a personal problem. But I read a lot of sweet romance books that really took me by surprise and made me believe in the genre again. Just, you know, to name a few: The Maid of Fairborn Hall, The Beautiful Pretender, The Heiress of Winterwood, The Healer's Apprentice, The Golden Braid, even The Goose Girl, which has an undercurrent of romance. Favorite new author. This can mean an author that has just made his or her debut, or an author that is new to you. I'm going with the latter. Melanie Dickerson. She wrote 4 of the romance books that I read in the first half of the year, all fairy tale retellings, and wow, she was meant to do what she does. Out of the 4 novels of hers that I purchased, I loved 3 of them, and the 4th one, I was bothered by the main female character. She just rubbed me the wrong way, but I still liked the story. It wasn't a total loss, but these 3 for me are winners, and I'm really excited to read her other books because she has quite a few of them. She just wrote an Aladdin retelling and announced that her next book is a Mulan retelling. Super pumped for that. I'd also like to mention Shannon Hale, who wrote The Goose Girl. This is actually part of a series that I definitely plan on continuing. Even though I've only read 1 book of hers, it's enough to interest me. She also seems to be well suited to fairy tales and that sort of style. I just really liked the way this book was written, the world, the characters, and the way it all came together. This also wasn't your typical fairy tale romance. The romance wasn't in your face. Very sweet to read, and I flew through this book. So I don't want to say she's a new favorite author because I've only read 1 book, but she's definitely a front runner for a new favorite author. Newest fictional crush. I think I'm going to skip this category. Yes, I've loved the romances that I've read about, but this just really isn't something I care about. Newest favorite character. Thinking about this one, I absolutely loved the sisters from The Nightingale. I really related to Vianne, not because of what she went through, but her personality. She's very realistic. She's the opposite of her sister. Her main focus is just to survive, keep her daughter safe until her husband comes home. Really, in her mind, she's not really out to do anything major, just stay alive. And yet, at the end of the story, the things she has done to save her daughter, to save other people, she puts her life on the line. She doesn't even realize the things that she's doing. I found that really relatable because I think a lot of people underestimate themselves and they think, well, who am I to do something like that? You know, I'm not a Harriet Tubman or a Corrie ten Boom or a Helen Keller, but in the moment, it's how you help people in need. It's how you react to negative circumstances that might arise. Book that made you cry. Well, I've already talked about The Nightingale a lot, so I'm going to mention The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. This woman is amazing. I've looked up to her since I was a little girl. This book always makes me cry, but it also inspires me. If you like reading nonfiction books about strong females, I would highly recommend this book. It is about Corrie ten Boom's journey after her and her family are caught hiding Jews and they are put in a concentration camp. She isn't a perfect Christian. She gets angry. She questions God. Still, she finds her way back and she persists. And it's just an absolutely incredible story. Highly recommend this book. A book that made you happy. I've raved so much about Melanie Dickerson's fairy tale retellings. I would highly recommend those. But I'll also mention The Maid of Fairborn Hall from Julie Klassen. This book was such a sweet Regency romance. It's about this girl who runs away from an arranged marriage and hides out as a housemaid. She's been raised in luxury, so being a maid, she has a lot to learn. It's a rude awakening. She ends up finding herself in the household of a man whose proposal she once rejected because she was in love with his brother, who turns out to be a jerk. As a servant, she's behind the scenes, and she sees him for who he truly is, and realizes that Nathaniel is the one that got away. He's also struggling still with her rejection from the past. It still hurts him. I would definitely call this a slow burn book that is well worth it. I was on the edge of my seat. I just had to know what happened next. I absolutely devoured the story. Another thing that was really interesting was how the book really taught you a lot about how Regency households operate. There were also quotes at the beginning of each chapter from books specifically about how households operate. Like, that's all they're about. I thought that was a really interesting thing to learn about. I'm sure it's not for everyone, but for me it was fascinating. Most beautiful book you've bought or received this year? I actually have quite a few answers for this one, but I'll stick to one. I am absolutely in love with this edition of the Sherlock Holmes novels. This is a Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition. I love the art style and how it depicts a city. I'm sure once I actually read the stories, I'll understand. There's probably some references on here, but I wouldn't know because I've never read any of these. Shame on me. How can I be a mystery fan? Let's see. The final question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Gemina and Obsidio by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. These are the sequels to the first book, Illuminate. This is the Illuminate Files series. Gemina is the second book. Obsidio is the third and final book. I absolutely loved the first book. I recently started Gemina, and I'm loving this one as well. Flying through it. I'm actually thinking about reading them back to back because I feel like everyone else has finished, and I don't want to be, the outsider, so I really want to finish and know what everyone's talking about and not have to worry about spoilers. If you would like to do this tag yourself, I will leave the questions down below. If you don't want to do the whole tag, but you have some answers of your own, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. I would love to chat with you about what you've read and loved for the first half of the year, or even what you've hated. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the red button down below to subscribe and become a member of my YouTube family. Also, click the bell to turn on your notifications. I will see you in my next video. Bye!